Now that we have some of the general information out of the way, we are going to talk about tutoring assignments and tutoring requirements. Students are eligible for 1 hour of tutoring per week for each of their BC3 credit courses. There are exceptions to this 1 hour rule. Students may be eligible for additional time if they are registered with their disabilities program or other specific programs at BC3. You will be advised of this when students qualify. In addition, some students may benefit from extra time for other reasons. Additional time for any reason other than disability related must be approved in advance by your tutoring contact. This can be done via email. When students request tutoring coordinators document the request and assign a tutor accordingly. When an assignment is made, both the tutor and student receive the same email with information regarding their tutoring assignment. We provided you with 4 sample tutoring assignments so you can see exactly what you and the student will both receive. Here is a sample of one of the emails that we may send. All 4 emails are very similar in nature. For remote tutoring assignments, off-campus site tutoring assignments, and as-needed assignments, students are assigned to a tutor for a specific course only. Students are advised that they are to contact the tutor to get things started. These assignments are expected to be regular weekly appointments at days and times mutually agreed upon by both parties. The only assignment email that is really any different is the one for the main campus in-person tutoring. Main campus in-person students receive this email. These particular students and tutors receive an email assigning a student to a tutor for a specific day of the week and specific time based on times and days submitted by the tutors and the students in advance. Students and tutors should keep these specific appointments for the course of the semester or unless the student cancels their tutoring sessions. Changes can be made to their schedules but must first be communicated to the tutoring coordinator so that we can make a note on the spreadsheet to avoid scheduling issues. Technically, when tutoring assignments are received, there is nothing you as a tutor are required to do until you hear from the student. However, many tutors like to reach out to the students when they receive this initial email to introduce themselves and let students know when they are available. Many tutors find this works effectively to facilitate a contact with students, especially those who may be unsure of what to do or anxious about the tutoring process. I also encourage tutors to reach out to as-needed students at key times during the semester to remind them that you are there to help when the student is ready. Examples of this would be like before midterms or finals. Once a tutoring assignment has been received and an appointment made, the tutoring process can begin. Let's look at the tutoring staff reminders, which provides a very basic guideline of the tutoring process requirements and is a handy tool to remind you of the steps as you become familiar. There are 2 main sections on this form. Let's start with the first appointment to-dos. When you meet your student for the first appointment, there are a few things to cover. The first is to review the student contract with the tutee. This is done for the first appointment and the first appointment only. When you meet your student for the first appointment, there are a few things to cover. We're going to start with the student contract. The student contract sets the ground rules for tutoring. It is important that you become familiar with the contract and review the contents of this document with your student. Since this document is so important, we're going to take a quick look at the information it contains. First, the relationship between the student and the tutor is a professional one. Students come to tutoring for assistance with their academic needs. This, however, does not mean you do not need to get to know your student on a personal level. This is an important part of the tutoring process and will likely happen the more you work with your student. With this being said, if a student happens to share anything of concern on a personal level or has questions about academic advising, like financial aid, please be sure to refer them to the tutoring coordinator so that they can be connected with an advisor to better assist them. Number 2 talks about confidentiality. As a tutor, you will have access to confidential information. Things like student ID numbers and grades are examples of confidential information. This information needs to be protected. Be sure not to share information with others or leave it laying in an area where others may see it. The next section talks about attendance. Attendance is expected, and we do document attendance. We will cover attendance in more detail when we look at the back or second page of the contract. Students are expected to meet weekly unless they sign up for as-needed tutoring. Students who do not keep their appointments or continuously cancel appointments will likely be removed from the tutoring schedule, so other students who are waiting can take their spots. Please be sure to document attendance issues. We will discuss this later. And contact your tutoring coordinator if a student needs removed from your schedule for non-attendance or no communication. Number 4, changes can be requested. This is true for both you and the student. Students and tutors can ask their tutoring coordinator to change the assignment if the tutoring relationship is not working out. 5 and 6 kind of go together. Communication is critical, and check my BC3 email often. Students and tutors are expected to communicate through the BC3 email system. We do not at any time give out a tutor's personal phone number or email. For professional and security purposes, we ask students and tutors to adhere to this request. Students should be reminded that they need to check their email regularly to watch for changes in appointment information or communicate with their tutor. Items 7 and 8 talk about appointment scheduling. At the end of the tutoring session, whether it be online or in person, the tutor and student should set up the next appointment. Ideally, it should be for the following week, same day, same time. This is especially true for main campus in-person tutoring. There is a little more flexibility, though, with remote tutoring as long as the student and tutor are both agreeable. Students who have regular weekly appointments, which is the majority of our students, they should be meeting weekly, each and every week, or until they tell us otherwise. Students with as-needed appointments are not required to meet weekly. A student may opt to say they will get back to you if they're unsure about the next appointment, but if they do this, they must contact you within 1 week, or else we may likely start the discussion of removing them from your schedule. The bottom half of the contract we can cover pretty quickly, as some of the items are self-explanatory. Numbers 9, 10, and 11 we can cover as a group. Tutoring works when the student works. Tutoring is not a homework service. Students should actively participate in the tutoring sessions, and tutors can help by clarifying course content, offering study tips, or providing practice problems. Our job is to help our students become more confident, independent learners. Also, tutoring is not a substitute for going to class. As tutors, you all know how important it is to attend class. Next, students should give or send you a copy of their course syllabus so that you can follow along with the class progression throughout the semester. This will provide you with important information like exam dates and when assignments are due. We then remind students we do not guarantee one-on-one tutoring. There are some instances for courses where we get multiple requests and you may need or want to do group tutoring. This is especially true for several of our science courses. For those of you tutoring in person at main campus or any campus, we also remind everyone that we are required to silence our phones in the tutoring area. Calls can be made or taken in a quiet, appropriate area away from the tutoring space. And finally, students must comply with BC3 college policies and procedures, which they're familiar with as a student. The only difference between this student contract and the one for remote students is that the remote contract contains some very brief information on professionalism and maintaining an appropriate setting for your remote tutoring sessions. So that was a lot of information. It was also very important information. Please be sure to take a minute and write down any items for which you would like clarification. The back of the student contract, or second page, is the attendance policy. When students make appointments with their tutors, they have made a commitment to their academic success as well as to the tutor. Everyone's time is valuable, so it's expected that appointments be honored. Due to the high demand for tutoring services, the following attendance policy is in effect. There are two primary areas we talk about when looking at attendance. They are no-shows and cancellations. No-shows occur when there was a confirmed appointment with a tutor and the student either does not show up at all or cancels with less than 1 hour notice. Associate and professional tutors are paid for no-shows. Cancellations occur when a student cancels an appointment with more than 1 hour notice. No matter which of these instances occur, they must be documented by the tutor, and we'll discuss how to do that in a little bit. And the student is required to follow up with the tutor to schedule the next tutoring session. If this does not happen, they may start falling out from the tutoring process, and we may remove them from your schedule. So for students to avoid suspension, they need to ensure that they don't accumulate multiple occurrences of no-shows and cancellations. And you can see in the avoid a suspension box how a person may fall out from the tutoring program. And just so you know, we do not immediately remove someone. This is a conversation that would happen between the tutor and the tutoring coordinator to make sure that it's appropriate that we take a student out of a schedule. No-shows and cancellations are cumulative for the course of the semester, and they're done per course. If anybody has any questions about the attendance policy, please let us know. The bottom half of the contract we can cover pretty quickly. You will see important contact names and numbers for many of our staff related to the tutoring program at different campuses. The second bullet point talks about the student statement of agreement, which we'll talk about in a second. And at the bottom, you'll see our take-home test policy, which is a reminder to students that as tutors in a tutoring program, we are not able to assist the student with a take-home exam. Let me give you an example, though, of how we can help a student better prepare for that exam. So if a student were to come to you for maybe assistance with a take-home exam for one of their math courses, as a tutor, you of course would let them know that you're unable to assist them with that particular exam. What you could do as a tutor, though, is have the student identify a problem or problems on the exam for which they are not familiar or comfortable with. You can then, as a tutor, go to the textbook or other resource and find problems that are similar in nature. Therefore, letting the student work through those problems between the two of you, and then the student can then go home and take the entire exam on their own. The only time tutors can assist students with take-home exams is if it's clearly stated on the exam that they can use any resource, including tutoring, to complete the exam. This rarely happens. When in doubt, please be sure to check with your tutoring contact first. The student statement of agreement is signed once the student contract is reviewed with your student. This agreement says that the student has been provided with the contract, has reviewed it, and understands the information it contains. You will see in the middle of the page that there is a bright yellow box that has a yes or no question. We require that students answer this question. It doesn't matter what they answer, but they still must mark either yes or no. This box gives us as tutors permission to contact their faculty for specific learning needs for their specific course. If they mark no, we are not able to do that. For those of you tutoring remotely, the student contract and statement of agreement are handled behind the scenes. Students are sent a link where they receive the contract information, must review it, and then they're required to electronically sign the statement of agreement answering these questions. We will let you know as tutoring contacts if a student does not give you permission to reach out to their faculty. I would ask that if you are interested in reaching out to a student's faculty member, that you contact us in advance of doing so to ensure that we know if a student has given permission. If you are meeting face-to-face, this form is signed and then returned to your tutoring coordinator. The next thing on first appointment to-dos is the BC3 plagiarism statement. This is an ideal time for tutors to provide this information and remind them of what the plagiarism policy is. For those of you who are writing tutors, I ask that you maybe spend a little bit additional time reviewing this as it directly pertains to the courses that you will be working with. For those of you who tutor other courses, it is still an important time to remind students of plagiarism and the importance and consequences of not following the guidelines. The final item on the first appointment to-dos is the student reference list. This really isn't even a to-do. This is more like a handy tool. This is not something you're required to use. However, it is something that many tutors find to be very helpful. The student reference list is an ideal way to capture student information to have on hand whenever you need it. Tutors are assigned multiple students often, and without having to look back in your email and find student emails or ID numbers, you can capture all that information in one space so you have it handy whenever you need it. Again, this is not a requirement for you to use. If you have another method for doing so, please feel free to use it. However, keep in mind, this document or something similar to it is considered confidential in nature since it has information like a student's email, ID number, and things like that. So please, at the end of the semester, we require that you shred this information or return it to us and we'll take care of it for you. This wraps up module number 3, which talks about the first appointment to-dos when you meet with your students. This is an ideal time to take some notes about any questions you have so we can cover them whenever we talk or meet in person.